It's time to talk Daytona. Why do old gamers adore it? Why do new gamers need to discover it? And what is the magic that drives AM2's masterpiece of arcade action? We'll be praising the power slide, marvelling at the music, and getting unreasonably excited about 40 smashed up stock cars cascading over our heads in a mass of molten metal. Because in this video, we're going to explain why you'll love Hello. Welcome to Why You'll Still Love Daytona. The Why You Still Love series is our effort to try and unpick, or understand why these truly classic retro games are still top of our lists decades after they came out. It's not just about nostalgia for us, it's always about we play games because they've still got something. They still grab us, they're still special. And in this series, we're trying to go to our true favourites and try to get to the heart of them. What it is that makes them so special. On this episode, I, Pedro, am joined by the wonderful, fantabulous, you can't see his face with his incredibly handsome Dibs Ahoy. Hello.
What an intro.
I know. I like to build you up, get G you up.
Oh, thank you. It's much appreciated.
We'll be for those people that have played the games that we're doing in this series to death, like we have, we hope that you're going to find some echoes of the things that you love in the things that we're talking about. And of course, we'll completely balls it up and say the wrong things. And we'd love it if you would contribute to us and tell us what you think the great things are about these. And for anyone who hasn't...
Right, what went wrong.
I should have seen that coming, man. And for those that haven't played this is definitely, unashamedly, us trying to convince you and explain why us old dudes are still pootling about playing these games when we could be moving on to Fortnite and whatever. Anyway, we'll see. I think we got some good stuff lined up. So let's dive straight into it. Dude, we're going for the things. We're going for the magic things about these games. We're going to try and explain.
Yeah.
Just go with your gut. What do you reckon the first of these things is for Daytona? What would you pick out?
Well, the one thing that I always remember when I first saw the game was how awesome the gameplay looked, specifically power sliding around the corners with the shifter little trick that you did where you could drop down into second. Yeah. Then whack it back into third or fourth, depending on the corner to pull it out of out of the slide and all that sort of stuff. And it was just, that was a magical thing because we kind of cottoned on to that being a part of the game when we saw there was some dude playing it and we were just watching it and we'd had a few goes and we'd been picking automatic and stuff, but it was seeing the manual gameplay. It was we suddenly saw. It was like a revelation. It was this is what it's all about, and those power slides were just so sweet. It was just an amazing and essential thing to master just to start getting the most out of the game. And in the arcades, it just looked so cool. And, with the crowd gathered around you and you were pulling them off, you felt cool. You felt cool,
And I'll tell you what, it's a good reason to still play it now. I've been that guy only in the past 6 months because I found a Daytona arcade in the wild and obviously I had a go. I think it's like a golden rule, isn't it? You see a Daytona arcade, you've got to have a go on it.
You're on it like a bonnet.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing now is a lot of people that might be in the arcade haven't seen it or don't know it and weren't there. And so I got on, it took me one lap to kind of warm up and stuff. And I was pulling off the power slides and genuinely, I'm not making this up, I heard someone gasp. I heard someone behind me. And obviously I can't take credit. It's the game that looks awesome, but it does make you feel good, right? It
really makes you feel good. Yeah.
It's just such a satisfying mechanic.
It really is, yeah. I don't know, it's just one of those things that once you get it, the feel of it is just something else, and it's above any other game that I played before or really since. I can't really think of anything that kind of gave me that same kind of sensation. It's like, you know, a lot of games I suppose moved on to a lot more realism with Gran Turismo and stuff like that kind of as influence. And, you know, I mean, like realistically, if you whack a real car into second and then into third, you'll rip the gearbox out of it, I suppose, or something. Like the engine will probably end out like about 500 meters away. But...
Well, I gotta say, on my second car, I did take my brother out in it, and it was like it was my first car that had rear wheel drive car, and I took my brother out in it, and he's always been a bit of a racer on like cars or bikes or whatever, and so I let him drive it. We went up to the roundabout, and he headed onto that roundabout and did do like a proper power slide in my car, like around this roundabout. And I absolutely shit my pants, but it was awesome. And I was like, oh man, I guess it did feel similar to the game. The game obviously has like other advantages and probably felt better, I'm not going to lie. The other thing I noticed was, it's actually... there is real complexity to the power slide Daytona. Like, there's massive simplicity because you can get it going pretty easily. But I mean, certainly when you get onto Dinosaur Canyon and onto Seaside Street Galaxy, you get like corners where it won't click unless you've got it bang on. And obviously there's loads where you'll oversteer and you'll like go into a spin and stuff.
Those kind of like little intricacies. You're not approaching every corner the same and doing the same thing every time. It's like there are moments when you need to adapt and like you know, use the technique, but then you need to be doing it slightly differently. And you know, then when you get to Seaside Street Galaxy, you need to be doing like a ton differently.
I mean, that's a beast. Yeah,
that is a beast. That's a tricky one. Like, you know, you gotta know what you're doing, so you gotta be in the zone with the game for sure.
And the thing is, there's so much in Daytona that complements the power slide. Obviously, the mechanics of the actual slide, the handling are amazing, but there's so much that complements it. So like, think of like 777 Speedway when you're doing the Sonic Wall and you power slide around there. Like, it's cool. Invariably there's loads of cars around you, and so it feels even more awesome. And then you've got that massive wall looming over you, so it feels even more awesome. Or when you do that corner on Dinosaur Canyon, when you get down to the bottom of the hill, and you know, like, obviously you're looking down it, and like the camera's sort of following you behind, and you know, when you slam the brakes on, the camera catches you up, doesn't it? It like compresses and
it kind of moves with the motion, doesn't it? Whereas like, you know, I think like James the Sega-holic talks about, like in Ridge Racer, it's more like you moved in the track, because like the camera is so like rigidly stuck to the back of the car, but like there's this motion with the Daytona camera that really it complements the action better with the car and everything.
Oh man, I just thought so. Has anyone ever done this joke before? Rigid Racer, huh? Is that a good joke? Did I make that up?
That's good material.
Yeah.
I think you wrote that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's what we come for.
Original material. But the other thing with the gameplay, I was just gonna mention, and that is like that I find just phenomenal. Really, is that it's brand new, amazing, like light years ahead technology. And this is the first game they utilized with it, and it wasn't like they didn't have to warm up to get the gameplay of this thing right. They came out of the gates like roaring out of the gates and nailed it. Like, first time they were given the tools to build something incredible, but like they also nailed this gameplay and just got it so right, and that's just an incredible thing.
You got to really unpack it. Like, you go back, like, what is it, it's a year or 18 months, and you're pre-virtual racing, and you're actually talking about Sega going, man, we just don't know how to get into the 3D world. Our guys know how to do sprites and 2D. All of our developers, the genius developers they had that had run their arcades division for 10 years, they were 2D, and that's the tech they knew. And like Yu Suzuki, they just like, he's got a maths background, and when you hear you talking about how you make the adaptation, they don't talk about skill or imagination. They talk about who can understand the geometry and the technical nous and the maths behind 3D worlds. That complexity and that like, I suppose, difference, and somehow right out the gate they're nailing the look of it and doing this. They're doing this handling in that world. Like, imagine,
incredible.
Imagine the complexity for like you and I even to generate a 3D image. And these guys are doing like a screaming, roaring power slide round a corner in the 3D image. Man, genius.
It's just next level, and it's probably one of the best playing driving games, in my opinion, of all time. And it's like, you know, how many years later is it? Like, well, it's literally 30 years later, isn't it?
Yeah, you nailed it with that first one, because the power slide is at the heart of the mechanics. I mean, all the driving feels good, you know. Acceleration feels good, the tyres screeching and squealing when you're pulling away and you've like accelerated too fast, that's great, you know. Like, the whole handling feels good, but the core, for me, like the gem, the nugget that we're trying to get to in handling is the power slide.
That's one of the main things, I would say, that's for sure, that jumps out to me. So you got anything up next then?
Well, you know, when we were talking about doing the Sonic War, I'm thinking the thing that really wowed me then, and literally I've been playing it this week and it still gets me now, is the computer AI. It's first off, I guess it is the fact that you've got so many cars, you know, so you've got such like pandemonium on the track, especially it probably is still my favourite, like 777 Speedway. Like with 40 cars, it is. Every lap is so different. Every lap is so nuts. Like every game has something else going on. But the AI of it is really at the nub of that, because you know this thing that Daytona does, where if you're doing well, the cars will like bully you and they'll like get in your way and they'll like jostle you more and stuff. And then if you're doing bad, they'll kind of like let you pass and give you a bit of an easier ride.
Bit of mercy.
Yeah. But you feel it. Like you were saying to me before, how they seem so alive because they seem to be having their own races off in the corner. You know, like, how many times did you go around the track and just stumble across some little battle that the computer seems to be having with itself?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It would generate some great moments as well, like when you kind of approach one of these things and they've jostled so much they've got into a crash, and there's a few cars like bouncing off the side, but there's, you know, particularly one like flipping over your head and you kind of can go underneath it, and it looks so cool. It's like, I remember before you were talking about seeing the underneath of the cars and stuff.
Man, that was so huge.
Those moments, because it gives the game life. Because it's like, you know you're doing your own battles and stuff, but then when you come up to other people having their own fights and stuff like that breathes life into the whole thing.
Yeah, massively. How many hundreds and hundreds of games of these tracks have we played? And I swear to you, I notice it most on 777 Speedway, but I swear to you, no, I've never had the same race twice. Like every time is different. Even the first few corners are different. Like every time, it is amazing. And you think like across to how other races do AI, and even with our favourites, you know, probably my favourite game ever is Sega Rally. But realistically, the opponents don't have a patch on Daytona, because one, they're so spread out, and two, they're massively on rails, and they're just kind of obstacles. Like
they kind of just follow that line, don't they, a lot of the time. Sega Rally, like you say, one of the best games ever made, but in terms of opposition, they do kind of sail around, and in a way I guess that kind of helps, you know, if you're doing these Saturn, you know, time trials and stuff like that, you can use them to bounce off and stuff like that, and give you little boosts every now and then, because you know that's where they're gonna be. But Daytona, there's none of that. It's like you ain't gonna be like, you know, counting on a car to be at a particular place at a particular time,
because you can't.
They're just like because they are just kind of doing their own thing and just ended up all over the show. And like, you know, some car could be like spinning in circles and going off onto the grass or something, but you know, you play that same race again in the exact same place, you ain't gonna be doing that.
And that's the thing on Sega Rally, that really works, and it's part of that game, and it like you know, it's so satisfying to know that guy's going to be there, I'm going to hit him just like this.
Oh, totally.
In fact, I'd write that down just in case we do a Sega Rally one. That might be like part of the stuff for that. But you know, I guess, you know, think of others, like go to our perennial favourite, definitely top 3 for me, Ridge Racer. Love that game, absolutely beautiful gem of a game, real much respect to people who play it. But honestly, I cannot even think of one move the opposition cars doing that. They are just part of the scenery. They're like they're vaguely in the way. Sometimes they're on a corner and they're a bit annoying, but it's just like there's no excitement in the computer AI. And it's such a funny thing to say that it jumps out at me at Daytona, but every time I play it, I'm so struck by how alive the whole thing feels and how like they add to it. And of course, they jostle you, so they like change the way you take corners on. Like they bump you from behind, so when you kind of when you screw things up all the time and you need a little get go, you can kind of see
you look on the map and try and line yourself up so they give you a good old boost when they hit into the back of you. It's a nice tactic.
I think it's just so energy fueled as a game, and the fact that the opponents feel so vibrant is such a huge part of that. So for me, that's like maybe Power Slide comes in first. That's like definitely close. I mean, what do you reckon, dude? Where would you go next? Because these are two gems. Is there more to it?
Oh, I would say there's one particular thing jumping out at me right now, and that is just remember back in the day when you walked into the arcade, Daytona was at the center of everything.
Yeah.
But before you even saw the machine, you could hear the machine.
Yeah.
And that was because it was pumping out some of the most iconic and memorable music you would ever hear in the arcades. Like you go in that arcade, you're singing Daytona that whole rest of that day.
I saw your face there, man. You were tempted to give it a belt. Go on, give it a bit of an Tekanobu.
Anyway,
I was transported by that. I enjoyed that great. But it's so true, and like there's a lot in the sound design generally, which I'll come back to it. But like you're so right. Like how many times did we walk in? A lot of the time we were there to go and play Daytona, but if you weren't, you couldn't ignore it because that would be blasting out. And it's like, as far as the track screens go, I mean, not that it was ever on the attract for very long because there were just people queuing up to play it, but it was such a magnet. I mean, and I think we said about this like on other chats we've had actually, but around this time, a little bit later than this I suppose, but games were transitioning into their cool phase. It was only like a year or two later that you were having Wipeout and dance music and that sort of stuff. But Daytona and Sega just flew in the face of like the conventional logic with everything, and they managed to convince like a Western audience of like their game prowess with this very kind of esoteric, classically Japanese theme tune, and it was like, it's just such a bold move, and my god, it paid off. It's just so good.
Oh man, it's just legendary. I mean, the dude, Takanobu Mitsuyoshi, he's a literal legend in gaming, isn't he? And it's like, he was the one belting out those numbers back in the day. So
you talk about your heroes. He's still got a great Twitter profile as well, and he's still got an incredible amount of energy. Like he's just, I don't know.
And you could feel the energy in the music as well. That's the thing. I mean, like, did you see when they did that Daytona USA 3 coin-op several years ago, where he was recording some new versions of the music, and there's actual footage of him in the studio singing it, and like he is loving every second of it.
I love him. He's so cool.
It's like there's no way you could like not get hyped by his energy and everything. He's just so he's so in the zone and in the moment.
Maybe he himself is kind of, if not another one, then the one. The music is huge, but he's huge to the music, and so you can and you're so right about his energy comes through. Like if you see, there's a brilliant YouTube video of him belting out the main Let's Go Away, track screen, and the way he sings it, he looks so joyful. Like it's just
he is,
So I mean, it's great music. So I never would have known the title of the 77 Speedway track at the time, but that's the King of Speed. That's brilliant. And obviously, like especially the bit when you're doing the Rolling Star, and it's like belting out on top of the music, Rolling Star. But I said to you just before, those two undoubtedly my favourite tracks and my favourite music tracks. But the one that always sticks in my head is Sky High. It's like, I guess it's kind of got that hooked, that earworm kind of nature to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whenever
I think back in the day, like that's probably the one that I heard the most because of each one of our friends kind of had a designated track. Like I think our friend Devon, like he was like the first track, and then maybe Larton's was a bit of the second track or something. But like my one was the expert track, so it was like endless
that
Sky High, like just
Yeah.
looping round and round and round. But I did not get sick of it at all. It was just like, you know, the amount of runs I must have done on those tracks, but the amount of times I heard it, but I never didn't enjoy it. It was just like it enhanced everything.
Yeah, it does.
Everything about it.
And I think, I mean, I am poor at that track, but I think I've got the timing up to this bit okay. I'll loop round because, you know, I always rave about the bit on the mountain track on Sega Rally about how as you get, if you play a 3-lap version, just as you get to the town centre on the 3rd lap, you get that awesome like sort of like bridge bit where it goes into the guitar. Oh my god, the timing of it is so amazing. And I swear, unless I'm terrible and I'm just fluking this, but
I was going to say I get it on the hairpin. But like, I'm kidding. I know.
Why are you on it? But on Seaside Street Galaxy, I swear, like the first time, or well, one of the times, my memory's fading, but I think it's the first time you hear Blue Blue Skies is when you come up the little hill and they emerge horizon like in front of you, and you get the massive bridge and full of blue skies, and he's like blue skies.
Oh, I mean, like, that the blue skies in that is like, you know, a category all of itself as well, isn't it? It's like just that absolute Sega perfection, like the legendary Sega Blue Skies. Just it's all over Daytona.
I think let's go there, because that is what I was going to come in with, maybe my other big thing for me. I don't think in these we're I'm not trying to review the game, so it feels funny to say it, but it's got to be the graphics, or more specifically the look. And Blue Skies is a huge part of that. Like Daytona is such a vibrant, beautiful, bright, colourful game. You know, I remember when Gran Turismo came out, and you know I've got a bit of a pet hate of Gran Turismo, and like you know, to me it's just anathema to what I like about games, really. And I'm not going to go on a rant, but Gran Turismo is grey, man. It's like grey tracks, it's like practice tracks, and I know there's colour in it, and it does look very pretty and whatever, but like Daytona is, that for me is the visual representation of how a game should play in the look. You know, it's like everything. Yeah, because we were having a chat before, and it's kind of, it is, I would say it's the look, but specifically within that, like the graphics and what they were doing at the time is a part of it. What were you saying to me? Like it's, we talked about the leap, weren't we? About,
I mean, in the home we had the 16-bit consoles, you know, the 32-bit consoles were coming along. Like in the arcade, you know, you'd had Virtua Racing, which looked good. It was like, you know, it was definitely a leap. But like then you had like Ridge Racer came out, and it was a leap, but it felt like, I sometimes say it felt mortal. It was a natural progression. It wasn't, you know, a generational kind of leap almost. At least that's what it felt like to me. But then it felt like Sega were like, right, okay, what can technology kind of do these days? Right, okay, here's where it is. Like, forget all that. Let's get Lockheed Martin on board. Like, get all these like
chuck them a couple of mil.
Yeah. Let's skip like about 3 generations or something like that, and see what we get. And that is like what it feels like with Daytona. It was like so far ahead. It was like, you know, it literally did feel like a jump of 3 generations. And in so fact, it really kind of was, because you didn't get Daytona on the 32-bit generation. Like, you know, maybe it could have done it on the 128-bit with PS2 kind of Dreamcast kind of era. Like, who knows? But the time when they actually got it like perfect in the home was on the Xbox 360, which did come out like over 10 years later, was it, or something? It was like, but that's how far ahead Daytona was.
Yeah,
it was just next level.
The vast power of a 360 compared to like a Model 2, and yet that's what it really took. I mean, you're right, because you look at original Xbox and Outrun 2, which is another big, gorgeous game, and probably they could have built Daytona and it would have looked amazing. But
I mean, they did have tracks from Daytona 2 in it.
Good point.
Fairness, So yeah.
So it probably proved its chops, but the fact is, it wasn't until the 360 that you got one that was genuinely nailed it. And yeah. And so I think graphics, because it was like 60 frames, like full texture mapping, like Gored shading, and like the lighting effects and whatever. It just looked.
It had the lot, and it was like perfect. Like I know there's like a little bit of pop up and stuff like that, but you didn't really notice it because everything else was just so spot on. Like even like the resolution even back then like just looked great. Like I remember like the Ridge Racer coin op, it had like scan lines on the monitor they used, but like the Daytona one, what kind of monitor was it you said?
It's that big rear projection monitor, wasn't it? Like,
that's it. It just looked otherworldly. That's the only way. It was
a beast. And I guess like it isn't just about reminiscing, but it is true to say like that what it was like at the time was so huge to the magic for like gamers at the time. I'd say this about it too. That looks so fresh today. It looks so good today. It looks
incredible today. Yeah, it's beautiful. I would describe it as beautiful. Yeah. Got it playing in the background right now, and it is just a joy to behold.
Yeah.
It's really something.
You look at Forza and Gran Turismo in their modern like Series X and like PlayStation 5 iterations and stuff, and on massive, powerful PCs. They're amazing. Like technically, they're amazing. But they also leave me cold because, quite honestly, the tracks they recreate are dull. It's like, I don't want to drive around the Nürburgring in like completely high 4K high def. It's ultimately a road. I want to drive around a completely made up track with a giant Sonic wall and a swinging boat and a dinosaur like wall, and it's like But that beautiful, bright, colourful graphics. I mean, you look at how many kind of modern day Unreal Engine or clones are coming out of this era of gaming, mainly driven by like old folks like us that have now got their hands on some kit.
Right.
They're also coming out because they look great. And you look at like Hi-Fi Rush and other cel-shaded games that are kind of aping the cel shading of Jet Set Radio and stuff. This kind of vibrant mid to late 90s colour scheme is in. It looks great. And the reason it's come back is because frankly, like modern games look really boring. So I'd say this, if you want to perk up your mood, if you want to actually play something that gives you energy rather than asks energy of you, Daytona and the look of it is massively part of that. So
all day, every day.
It's a gem. Now look, there are loads of other little nuggets of genius in Daytona you could chuck in. Like I mean, I don't know if any others come out to you, but I probably wouldn't put them on the same level. In fact, the car getting damaged, the car getting beat up, that's the pit lane, like just
pit lane,
the craziness of the pit lane, that in like the idea that you would ever pit when the pit stop takes like 20 seconds if you pit properly. It's like
exactly like in the arcade you'd be losing that quid pretty quickly.
Like the signs, bashing the signs around. I know I shouldn't rave about this. This is like probably means nothing to like modern games, but you're not going into Gran Turismo and like chasing a horse around a field or like bashing like signs around just for the hell of it. It's just silly little touches that are brilliant. And
even that little the little nugget that's in the tunnel on Dinosaur Canyon, where the bit after you've just come out of the you've just lost your sponsor or whatever it is, isn't it? It's like, oh man.
And,
but that is a nice touch.
You gotta have a sense of humour, and do you know what I noticed as well playing it over the last week, which obviously this is just an arcade thing, it's not specific to Daytona, but the fact there's a timer on everything, it's like you load the game, obviously you get the please select a race car or whatever, the people talking, so everything's very energetic, there's music. There's a timer to select your car, a timer to select your transmission, a timer to select your track. And I know it sounds really stupid, but have some energy. I don't want to sit on a boring title screen fiddling with options. I just want to go.
Exactly. And also it stops people mugging you off in the arcade if you just sat there on that screen for ages.
Get on with it, you punk. I've paid my pound. Get a life, loser. You've got 3 seconds left. So there's loads of other stuff on there, but out of those then, look, I think for me that's the core of it. What would be your pick of the bunch? Like if there's one thing that drives Daytona and makes it a game that you'd still love today, old game or new game, what do you reckon would swing it?
I probably would have said back in the day, as many other people commented on when they first saw it, because like I said, it was otherworldly. was the graphics, but as time has kind of gone on, it's the gameplay. It's those power slides. You know, the stuff like the boost starts and all that sort of stuff. Just, and like you say, all the nuances of the entire how it plays. It's just that's the number one thing for me.
Yeah, and I agree. Like I've just massively enjoyed going through all of that. It's just absolute gem. But old gamer, new gamer, do a power slide on Daytona today, and it is the most beautiful, freshest bit of gaming you can do. It doesn't matter this is 30 years old. That feels absolutely amazing. So I think for me, if you want a reason why you'll still love Daytona, it's the power slide. It's genius. Yeah. So, well, there you go. That's like our poop through it. So, like we said at the start, like if you got your own personal favourite things about Daytona that aren't on that list, chuck them in the comments. Give us a shout. Like, tell us why we're wrong. Shout us, all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you agree with us, it would be a minor miracle. But you can also pat us on the back and tell us that as well if you want. And like we really hope if you've never played Daytona, then I hope you got a damn good reason. But we hope you go and play it because you won't be disappointed. It is just such a fantastic game. 30 years on, whatever. 100 years in the future, this will still be a gem of a game. So enjoy.
For sure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that. Thanks, Dibs. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time.
Layers.